First of all, it's a pleasure and honor for me to be here on this special occasion, because this is the event which is to commemorate the 175th anniversary of Bertha von Suttner, the first woman to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. And I think that she can serve as a role model, as an example of aspiration, admiration, and inspiration, I would say, for young people as us. And she received this Nobel Peace Prize for her dedication and contribution to the peaceful world. And she firmly stood for peace and justice, and she called for disarmament. And through these lines, I would say that the principles and her work is still valid and relevant nowadays. And I would say that we should learn from the past in order to help us build better present and future. And in this regard, I would like to share the experience of my homeland, Kazakhstan, and Kazakhstan's nuclear legacy, which is the primary reason for me to get involved in the issue of nuclear disarmament. So going back in the times to the history, my homeland, Kazakhstan, had experienced the horrors of nuclear tests. There were around 500 tests conducted for 4 decades in the USSR times from 1949 until 1989. And the consequences of these tests, they affected almost 2 million people, causing transgenerational impact on their health, environmental damage and disaster, socioeconomic stagnation and loss in the eastern part of Kazakhstan, which was known as the Semipalatinsk nuclear test site or semi-polygon. And just to give you an idea, the size of this test site is equal to the territory of Belgium or Israel. But nevertheless, it doesn't mean that the whole Kazakhstan was affected, because Kazakhstan is the 9th largest country in the world. And it's really huge. So the test site was in the eastern part. And nevertheless, I believe in the strength of human power and cooperation. And therefore, the grass movement can serve as an example of success, I would say. And this was happening back in the times then. The grassroots movement, Nevada Semey, which was led by Olja Suleimanov, was very successful in closing the Semipalatinsk nuclear test site, despite the Soviet ruling and influence on the conduct of nuclear tests. And can you imagine that this grassroots movement was gathering protests of 5,000 people? There was no internet, and they could collect a petition of 5 million signatures without internet. And this is where human power comes, where human strength comes. And this is an example of the success where the grassroots movement can turn also into the global international campaign. The name of this movement is called Nevada Semey, which means that Nevada test site in the US, and Semey stands for Semipalatinsk test site in Kazakhstan. So people all around the world were inspired, and they wanted to stop the nuclear tests. And they were successful, and the test site was closed, but nevertheless, the impact of those testings are still continuing and still impacting the residents of those 2 areas in the US, let's say, and in Kazakhstan, who are being recognized as the victims of testing. But there are also other countries, for example, Marshall Islands. And in this regard, I also would like to mention, as being a young woman, that the humanitarian consequences of nuclear tests are impacting women and children differently, severely than men. So it means that women and children are more vulnerable, and they suffer more. And there were many examples of women being not able to deliver a child, who were facing a lot of health problems, women health problems. There were also children born. They were called as jellyfish. They were having birth abnormalities and deformations. And this is a sad experience and tragedy, which is still continuing for the present generations and for the future generations to come for many years. And nevertheless, last year, in 2017, the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons was awarded a Nobel Peace Prize for publicizing the humanitarian consequences of nuclear weapons. And there are also other organizations which were working for nuclear disarmament. We can name some of them. For example, Pugwash movement on world affairs and science. There is also IPPNW, which is International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War. There are also some individuals, for example, Barack Obama, and International Peace Bureau, which is known for Bertha von Suttner being a co-founder of this organization. And most of other organizations were drawing example from Bertha von Suttner's work, being admired by her tireless work for peace and disarmament. I would like my own career, yeah, I'm going to come to this. And as a part of working for PNND, Parliamentarians for Nuclear Non-Proliferation and Disarmament, to commemorate the 175th anniversary birthday of Bertha von Suttner, and in conjunction with the International Women's Day for Peace and Security, which is on May 24th, women leaders, 50 women leaders from PNND have released the statement, the Women's Statement, calling for sustainable and nuclear weapon-free world and common security. And they have recognized that despite of being only women representatives, this is not the main issue. It's all about common humanity. It's all about standing for peaceful, sustainable, just, and secure world, regardless of gender. But bringing your leadership, bringing your skills, abilities to make this world a better place, to make changes. And also there are important events such as I have mentioned, International Women's Day for Peace and Security. There's also UN Security Council resolution on women, peace and security. So these are to be publicizing the role of women, but also women's participation in order to maximize the possibilities of peace. And being as a young person, I cannot also disregard the role of young people, I would say. So I'm convener of Abolition 2000 Youth Network. This is the global network to eliminate the nuclear weapons. And I'm working together with young people coming from all around the world, educating them and engaging them in the issues of peace, security, sustainable development goals, and primarily nuclear disarmament. And last year in Prague, I have organized the International Youth Conference, and we had international participants from different countries, and we have released a youth appeal. In this youth appeal, we have highlighted the role of civil society, including young people and also seniors, those who are willing to work, those who are active, and those who believe in a sustainable nuclear weapon-free world. And I also would like to give attention to the importance of education. As a young person, and our generation and those who were born after us are not aware of the nuclear threat, of the consequences of nuclear weapons. For us, it's something that was a fear for probably our parents or other generations who were living in the times of Cold War. And therefore, it's necessary to maintain the intergenerational gap, trying to bring together young people with seniors who are having experience, expertise, and knowledge, to bring it and transfer to young people, to work for the better present and future generations to live in a nuclear weapon-free world, which is secure, sustainable, just. And I would like to encourage everyone to be proactive, to have a belief. And I think if one decides to work in the field of peace and security and disarmament, I think one should be very passionate about that. So With this, I would like to finish. Thank you for having me here, and I will be glad to answer the questions.